How to stay informed without doomscrolling, mental health tips from experts. How coronavirus news affects your mental health, media consumption, and psychological well-being. How to stay informed without doomscrolling, mental health tips from experts. Feeling like the news is a roller coaster you can't get off? Here's how to stay in the know without losing your peace of mind. Picture this: you open your phone and within seconds you're bombarded with headlines screaming about crises, scandals, and disasters. It's overwhelming, right? And yet, turning a blind eye to what's happening in the world feels irresponsible, like burying your head in the sand while the storm rages on. So, how do you find that sweet spot between staying informed and protecting your mental well-being? Let's dive into some practical strategies that can help, with insights from experts who know a thing or two about navigating this tricky balance. First, let's acknowledge the elephant in the room. The news can take a serious toll on your mental health. Constant exposure to negative stories, sometimes called doomscrolling, can leave you feeling anxious, helpless, or even numb. But here's where it gets interesting. Experts argue that completely tuning out isn't the answer either. Why? Because staying informed empowers you to make better decisions, engage in meaningful conversations, and even take action on issues that matter to you. The challenge then is to consume news in a way that informs without overwhelming. And this is the part most people miss. There are intentional habits you can build to achieve this balance. To help us unpack this, the Reset newsletter recently sat down with mental health professionals to get their take. Among the experts were Alexa James, the CEO of NAMI Chicago, a leading voice in mental health advocacy, and Stewart Shankman, a psychologist from Northwestern Medicine who specializes in understanding how stress impacts our minds. Their advice? It's all about setting boundaries and being selective. For example, try designating specific times of the day to catch up on news, say 15 minutes in the morning and evening, rather than letting it infiltrate every spare moment. Another tip is to diversify your sources so you're not just hearing the loudest, most sensationalized voices. Think of it like curating a playlist. You want a mix of tracks that inform, inspire, and challenge you, not just noise that stresses you out. But here's where it gets controversial. Not everyone agrees on what staying informed really means. Some argue that skimming headlines is enough, while others insist you need to dig into long-form articles or even academic reports to truly understand an issue. What do you think? Can you be informed without going deep, or is surface-level news consumption just a recipe for misinformation? We'd love to hear your take in the comments below, especially since this debate often sparks heated discussions among readers. Now, let's zoom in on some of the local stories making waves in Chicago as covered by Reset. One hot topic is the GOP's proposed tax and spending plan, specifically how it might ripple through Illinois. For instance, there's talk of tightening Medicaid coverage by introducing stricter eligibility rules, which could leave many low-income families in a bind. Imagine being a single parent who relies on Medicaid only to find out you no longer qualify. How would you cope? This is a story worth watching, as it could reshape healthcare access for thousands. Another headline grabbing attention is a recent mass shooting in Chicago, a stark reminder of the city's ongoing struggle with gun violence. Reset broke down the details, but also zoomed out to look at the bigger picture, covering other local stories that might not make national headlines but still hit close to home. And then there's this jaw-dropping fact: Chicago's plan to replace all its lead service lines, those old pipes that can contaminate drinking water, won't be complete until today's newborns are well into middle age. That's right, it could take decades to ensure every resident has access to safe water. This raises a big question: is this timeline acceptable, or should the city be held to a higher standard? It's a topic that could easily spark debate, so let us know your thoughts. Do you think this is a reasonable pace, or a failure of urgency? As you navigate the news, remember this: staying informed doesn't mean drowning in information. By setting boundaries, choosing quality over quantity, and engaging critically, you can stay connected to the world without losing yourself in the process. So, here's a challenge for you: try one of the expert tips we've shared, like limiting your news intake to specific times, and let us know how it goes. Or, if you disagree with the idea of curating your news diet, tell us why. What's your secret to staying informed without the mental overload? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we're all ears. How coronavirus news affects your mental health, media consumption, and psychological well-being. Have you ever stopped to consider how the constant barrage of bad news might be silently eroding your mental well-being? In a world dominated by headlines of pandemics, wars, political crises, and natural disasters, the impact of media on our psychological health is a conversation we can no longer afford to ignore. But here's where it gets controversial. While staying informed is crucial, the way media presents these events might be doing more harm than good. We're living in an era where the coronavirus pandemic has taken center stage, but it's far from the only threat grabbing headlines. From global conflicts to terrorist attacks, and from economic downturns to environmental catastrophes, the news cycle is a relentless stream of negativity. Yet, how often do we pause to reflect on how this constant exposure affects our mental states? And this is the part most people miss. The media's focus on sensationalism and negativity isn't just informing us. It's shaping our emotions, sometimes in profoundly damaging ways. Some individuals may feel overwhelmed by the weight of this negativity, leading to heightened anxiety, insecurity, and even depressive symptoms. Others might respond with emotional detachment, almost as a defense mechanism to shield themselves from the pain. But why does this happen? Research suggests that the emotional tone of media content can significantly influence our mental health. For instance, studies by Deci and Ryan, 2008, emphasize the importance of positive hedonic experiences in media, which can foster mental well-being by encouraging positive emotions and reducing negative ones. Here's where it gets even more intriguing. While media outlets often prioritize negative news to capture attention, this strategy may backfire. As Klein, 2016, points out, excessive negativity can lead to audience disengagement, as viewers tune out to avoid the emotional toll. Yet, the competition for viewership often reinforces this cycle, leaving us trapped in a spiral of doom and gloom. But is this the only way? Couldn't media strike a balance between informing and uplifting? Studies have shown that consuming predominantly negative news can elevate anxiety and depression levels, as measured by self-assessment tools. This isn't just about feeling down after watching the news. It's about how these emotions can distort our thinking. For example, anxious or depressive states can lead to catastrophizing, where we exaggerate the severity of personal concerns. This is where the concept of brooding comes in. As Wells, 1994, explains, individuals prone to brooding are more likely to fixate on threatening content, amplifying their worries and perpetuating a cycle of negativity. But here's a thought-provoking question: is the media simply reflecting our reality, or is it amplifying our fears? McKeon, 2020, argues that news about pandemics, like coronavirus, can trigger anxiety levels far exceeding the actual risk. This raises a critical point. Are we being informed, or are we being manipulated into a state of constant fear? The difference between brooders and non-brooders lies in how they process information. Brooders tend to access a wider network of negative associations, often asking "what if?" questions that fuel catastrophic thinking. This isn't just a personal quirk, it's a cognitive pattern exacerbated by media's focus on negativity. So what can be done? Should media outlets take responsibility for the emotional impact of their content? Or is it up to individuals to curate their consumption? In conclusion, the psychological health of audiences should be a priority for media programmers. While staying informed is essential, the way information is presented can either empower or paralyze us. As we navigate an increasingly complex world, perhaps it's time to demand a media landscape that informs without overwhelming, educates without terrifying, and connects without dividing. What do you think? Is the media's focus on negativity justified, or is it time for a change? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's start a conversation that matters. ***. Bibliography. Deci E. L. and Ryan R. M. 2008. Hedonia, Eudaimonia, and Wellbeing. An Introduction. Journal of Happiness Studies. 9-1, 1-11. DOI. 10.1007/S1-090-2-006-9018-1. Klein, P. 2016. Weg met het rotnews. Go away with the bad news. Retrieved from http://www.rtlnius.nl/Netherland/column/Peter-Klein/weg-met-rottenius. Lewis, M. 1994. Good News, Bad News. The Psychologist, 7, 157 to 159. Matthews, A., and McLeod, C. 1994. Cognitive Approaches to Emotional Disorders. Annual Review of Psychology 45, 25-50. McKeon, R. 2020. Don't let the coronavirus mutate into an epidemic of fear and panic. The Globe and Mail. Retrieved from https://www.theglobeandmail.com. Vassi, M. W. and Borkovec, T. D. 1992. Catastrophizing Assessment and Treatment. Cognitive Therapy and Research 16, 505-520. Wells, A. 1994. Attention and the Control of Worry. In G. Davey and F. Tallis, eds. Worry Perspectives on Theory, Assessment and Treatment. Chichester, Wiley.